Welcome to Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity because here you'll find curiosities. I'm Wyatt Buckner of the Duluth News Tribune. Now I'll be your guide as we discover the unique and fascinating stories here in the Northland. Here we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. In this episode, we look back at the time a series of ads in the Duluth News Tribune were highlighted by Jay Leno. Let's venture forth into Northlandia. Here to explain how and why the D&T made an appearance with Jay Leno is reporter Jimmy Lovrien. Jimmy, welcome back.
Hello, Wyatt. Thank you.
So, Jimmy, let's just jump right into it. Why was the Duluth News Tribune featured on Jay Leno? And just to be clear about the timeline here, this is back in 1990 around.
Exactly.
So
late
still
1990.
It was actually prior to when Jay Leno hosted the show himself. As you explained to me, he was a guest host.
Yes, he would often fill in for Johnny Carson, and often for long periods of time. And then, when the time would come, to replace Johnny Carson, everyone thought it was going to be David Letterman. Ended up being Jay Leno. That's besides the point. Anyway, Jay Leno was hosting this episode in late 1990 of The Tonight Show.
Mm-hmm. So this is prior to when Jay Leno became a bigger name.
Exactly.
He was a known name because he had guest hosts, he said before. So
right.
That's kind of interesting because I assumed it was just on the time he was big,
I did too. This was 5 years before either of us were born. So, yeah, I think it's acceptable for us not to understand that. But that's the timeline of late night hosts, as I understand now. Was always a David Letterman fan myself. But so he would do kind of this headlines segment where it's kind of, ridiculous newspaper clippings from around the country people would send in or flag for him. Weird headlines, typos, just ironic stuff, and he would, bring them up on those black, they'd be pasted to a black card, and you'd kind of show the camera, and people would laugh, go on to the next one. And that's where these series of 4 ads for the 1990 film White Palace, where they appeared, after appearing in the pages of the Duluth News Tribune. And
progressively changed.
Yes, it was the original one. So White Palace is a 1990 romantic drama starring Susan Sarandon and James Spader. I've never seen it. I've read the synopsis on Wikipedia, so I get the gist of it. But the advertisement bills it as the story of a younger man and a bolder woman. So it's a photo. The promotional photo is of Spader kissing the chest of Sarandon, and she's not. I mean, he's like pulling her gown further down. So there is a lot of chest shown.
No nudity though. Like it's still clean. Exactly. It's just a little racy.
Yeah, it's just a lot of upper chest, and he's kissing it, and it's I guess. Was a little too racy for the minds of, or the eyes and minds of the Duluth News Tribune readers, who complained. And then over the course of its several-week run in the AMC Theater over at the Mariner Mall in Superior, those ads just continually covered up her chest until she was basically wearing a turtleneck. So it's kind of like each time, every couple days or whatever this ran, 4 different times. I mean, it ran more than that, but there were 4 changes that I could find where it went from lots of chest to a little bit less to like a collar, like just a low collar to basically a turtleneck. And so that wound up on Jay Leno's show, onto the Tonight Show. But anyway, I've seen that video online because it's kind of one of the first things you see when you search Duluth News Tribune or search into YouTube or something like that. It always comes up. And so I decided to dive deeper. I went and through the microfilm for October and November 1990 and found the actual ads to make sure this did in fact happen, and it wasn't some thing that people thought happened and someone had just mailed in phonies to the Tonight Show or something like that. And then I spoke with one of the graphic artists who worked on it, and it was just kind of fun to hear how her clothing evolved into more modest wear.
We'll just get into then, like, what'd you learn from that conversation? Because as a graphic artist, I just can imagine they just keep like, okay, we gotta change it again. Okay, I gotta change it again. Yes. All right, I gotta change it again. Like, what was that experience like, I guess? Yeah,
so that's what I spoke with Ted Heinonen, who he was a graphic designer in the Duluth News Tribune's art department during this time. And I found it because he had posted in the comments on this video when it was posted to Perfect Duluth Day, that website. He posted in the comments, and so I found him, gave him a call. And anyway, so he said that someone else was working on this ad. Someone complained. They added a little bit more shirt. People kept complaining. They added more shirt, and finally they were just sick of it. Put it on his desk, and then he kept adding more shirt to her chest, and people just would not satisfied with it. So he said it was just kind of one of those funny things that he remembers from his many years working here. And yeah, so it ultimately ended up with a design where she's wearing a parka and James Spader is replaced with a snowman head. I could not find that in the microfilm. I'm not saying it didn't run. Ted recalled it running and has a image of it. I could not find it in the microfilm. Doesn't mean I didn't miss it or it didn't get scanned in or something. But that was kind of the tongue-in-cheek, kind of the last. He kind of, so that was the last hurrah, just to finally put a spike in it and do one thing over the top, because at this point it had been made fun of quite a bit, including, at some point it ended up also being featured. Well, the Jay Leno segment ended up being featured at the Colder by the Lake theater group at Fickers, featured the Jay Leno thing. But yeah, he said it kind of grew into something that was obviously getting a lot of attention, and he was actually very proud of it, he was very pleased with it running on Jay Leno. He's not sure who submitted it. He said he didn't. He's not sure who did, but he is glad that they...
I mean, any reader could have done it, I guess.
Exactly. Maybe they got multiple people to do it, but just he said that it was he's glad it reached Jay Leno, and that he had some fun with it. Ted did, making it as kind of... It's just kind of silly when you think about it. And so he had fun with it, and he's glad others did as well. So it's not something that he was, embarrassed by. He's saved on, he's got clippings from his many years here of the different advertisements he worked on, and it sounds like this is one of them. And he said this is among the kind of the best memories, of many memories he had while working here. And so just kind of a weird saga of, prudishness and kind of a response that just is too funny. I mean, it's perfect for, this type of, presentation by Jay Leno. So yeah, we've got photos of the ad online, obviously, showing the continuation from, almost removed gown to turtleneck.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that this is like, the community that eventually came up with the idea of nipple enhancers as a patent design.
Right. We did not, I'm not aware of any complaints we got when we did that as a Northlandia.
I'm just surprised that I guess wasn't sure how ads and stuff worked back then, but I would assume that the ad was actually made by, the studio that was, promoting the film. I imagine it'd be their ad. So I'm just surprised that they wouldn't be in charge of their own, did they approve these changes? I wonder.
The way he said, he said that so I think the image comes from the, movie production clip or so. But the ad itself was for the theater over in the Mariner Mall, which was an AMC theater. And at the time, I mean, newspapers would create ads for local businesses more than they do now, just different era. And so he said that the theater manager at the time just loved it because it was getting attention for his theater, and so they just kept doing that. And so, and he said he also, Ted, the former graphic designer, says he actually the D&T owns the copyright for these ads that they make, and so because they would make them in house with images provided outside oftentimes. But yeah, so kind of a different way of, and especially and this was largely digital. So
so the studio really had no involvement at all.
Right. This was yeah. And so
I imagine they'd have words though, like by the end, the final ad is a snowman, for James Spader. That's just a completely different movie. Right. I don't think that represents the movie in the slightest.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe so. Maybe with the internet they would have caught on, or they would have seen something, but I don't know. I mean, maybe after Jay Leno presented it, they saw it. But I guess the theater manager at the time loved it. Got a lot of attention for this movie, and then I forgot.
It's too bad the snowman version didn't make it on Jay Leno. Didn't get noticed by Jay Leno because it was already pretty funny, in his bit on the show. Right. But like to have it then go to, if you had what you had and then have just jump straight to Snowman, like that's just crazy to think.
Right. Yeah, it seemed like you'd be watching more of like a Jack Frost or some other weird holiday movie that.
Yeah, imagine if that,
moment.
like if you only had that last one to go off of, and then you went and saw the movie, and you're like, wait a second, where's the snowman?
Yeah, no, you would, just reading the synopsis on Wikipedia, you wouldn't want to bring a kid to it kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, if you think you're going to watch a holiday, wintertime, Christmas kind of a movie, yeah, no, it was rated R, and yeah, it's totally different than what was there, but just just one over the top way to send this ad out. And again, this was had about a 2-ish week run, late October to mid-November, over at the Mariner Mall, and so I've got examples from October 26th to 28th, November 3rd, November 10th of each shirt, having more of a collar, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then it inspired, there's the Jay Leno section, which I guess was then used, Colder by the Lake, so Brian Matusak was involved in that. He's the Rubber Chicken Theater guy, and at the time he was doing a lot of things for Colder by the Lake. And he said that I had read in one of these articles from 1990 that this had gone, way over the top, and it had been already a part of Colder by the Lake parody. And so I called Brian because I saw that he was involved in that way back then, and he said, I think what we did was just show the Jay Leno video. He's like, I don't know if we did anything else other than introduce it. So who had recorded that is Bruce Ojard, who was very involved in Colder by the Lake, and so and his YouTube channel has all sorts of different Duluth, whether that be vintage video or other funny things. But I guess he had recorded it, and then they kind of, the way Brian remembers it is they just kind of were like, no, all right, here it is. Here's the clip.
It certainly seems like something that they would pull just from the few years that I've known Brian and witnessed his. He seems pretty in touch with the current happenings of Duluth and the surrounding areas, and is able to tap into that humor. Like, I don't know if you follow any of his Kathy Cargill humor of late. It's been on point. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he made use of that at the time.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised to see his name when I was trying to figure out what Colder by the Lake actually did with this and seeing his name on the review or whatever. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of right up his alley, even though it's been 34 years or whatever, and he's been doing that for longer. But yeah, no, I think he said he's like, I bet we just kind of did, some sort of introduction where we said, oh, in the Duluth News Tribune, doing some hard-hitting journalism, and then, showed this. So yeah.
Yeah, and even just in recent years, this isn't like, certainly not the last time Duluth has ever made its appearance in some fashion on nighttime talk show.
Yes.
Without naming specific stations, because I don't want to throw shade directly. If you know, but there've been appearances on Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon and others, just in the few years that I've been in the know of what's going on news-wise. Usually it's flubs of some kind,
Yes.
And I wonder how, if this was kind of on par with that kind of reaction, or if maybe it was a bigger deal because it was back in the 90s, I imagine this is one of the earlier times that Duluth's kind of snuck into the radar of national television.
Right. I think this probably went viral in the way probably those things went, locally viral. I think, of course, then you don't have, the internet or social media to spread these things, but the way that it was covered by the DNT, then obviously reaching Jay Leno's desk. Think for a 1990, that's about as, that's pretty similar to what, that's kind of going viral late or something. It's locally viral and reaches a national audience. Obviously, not every news broadcast and publication weren't all coming to write about this fiasco, or whatever, but it locally had several articles in Duluth News Tribune mentioning it, about it, a column, local theater company doing, kind of parodying it, Jay Leno. And then, the enough attention that the Miramar Theater manager or owner was enough, like, keep doing this. This is great. It's great. We're getting attention. People are seeing this, and I guess it was either good for business or good for at least attention, that enough that he was very in favor of it. And so, yeah, I don't know at what point they could have, stopped and been like, all right, people are just going to have to deal with this, but it sounds like to me like they're just kind of kept going because people kept complaining and because it just kept getting funnier and funnier with each step. So
I wonder if in your research, did we do an article on the fact that it made it on Jay Leno or got a feature on Jay Leno? Did we do a self-report with? We
did. It was like kind of in a roundup. Let me see if I can find it here on my computer screen. I have local TV notes and it was kind of mentioned at the end of this article in Leno lampoons News Tribune's attempt to clean up lusty movie ad. Yeah, so it's kind of like there's this bulleted roundup of kind of explaining out, what I guess is happening on WDIO and KBGR and at the time KDLH, and kind of they're competing and what are their ratings, all that, and then then the national news, the morning shows, nightly news, how they're doing in the markets, and then at this point Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show continues to slide into the tubes, which then brings up, segues into fill in Jay Leno and his commentary on the White Palace ad. So, it kind of made the back of it. And then, again, Jim Heffernan wrote a column about it in which here's the headline for his column about it. Explicit movie ad shows the decay of American society. And it's very tongue-in-cheek. He's very, poking fun at the whole thing as, and how, over the top the reaction was. So, yes, it covered it a bit, but not that I could find anything too crazy. But then again, I was going through about 2 months worth of microfilm just looking for this ad. So if I wasn't reading every headline, but I was looking specifically for this ad or one with a snowman. So, yeah.
That's funny. And so, Jimmy, this might seem self-explanatory, but why is it still talked about 34 years later? As mentioned before, there's been, at least in the last, just 6 or so years, there's been a few that I can think of that have made it to the national nighttime talk shows. Why is this one still talked about 34 years later?
Right. Well, I think it's because of Bruce Ojard's video uploaded to YouTube 7 years ago. It's got 11,000 views, and again, I don't know if it for a while really came up pretty easily when you would search Duluth or DuluthNewsTribune.com, especially on YouTube. So I think it lives on through there because I don't know if there wasn't much of besides that video and people referencing that video or reposting the video, posting it some other venue, forum, like Perfect Duluth Day. There's not some other article about it or something like that. So that in the digital realm that you can search up. So I think that is how it lives on. And we know about it today because of that. Of course, people who worked there at the time would be able to tell us, but that video is why people who weren't here at the time or hadn't heard about it or maybe don't remember it, they can relive its magic.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if this could ever happen again.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or a version of it.
Right. I'm trying to think of any.
That's not a challenge. Right. I'm not proposing that it's a challenge to our ad people. Yeah. But I'm just curious if the same thing were done today, if it would have the same kind of reaction, or maybe things have changed. I mean, we've come through from nipple enhancers, at one point in time. So
exactly, a little less prudish. Although we occasionally get feedback on stuff, but never has it. Yeah, someone's sometimes unhappy about what someone in a story is wearing, and it's kind of like, we're not out there putting something explicit on.
Right.
Sometimes people just wear something and not everyone's going to like it, and they feel the need to let the paper know.
They have the need to let us know a lot of things. So
yeah, exactly.
Good and bad. Good and bad. Right. All right, Jimmy. I think we'll wrap up there. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wyatt.
And thank you for joining us in this venture into Northlandia. To read the article for this week's column, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/topics/Northlandia. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to support us, consider becoming a subscriber of Duluth News Tribune at DuluthNewsTribune.com/subscribe. Join us again next time and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss if you're not in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.